How could Tu Youyou deceive the Nobel Prize and the Lasker Foundation Award in Medicine? Lecture 1. Tu Youyou's claim that her sample number 191 had 100% inhibition rate against rodent malaria was a big lie. The discovery of artemisinin and its derivatives was a great contribution from Chinese scholars to the world in the 20th century, which was deserved to win 2015 Nobel Medical Prize because it saves the lives of millions of people, especially in the third world. However, the Nobel Prize winner Tu Youyou was an academic liar. Actually, he was a person selected by the Ministry of Health of the Chinese government, who can best benefit the interests of the Chinese authorities, rather than a true scientific contributor. The sample 191 was some drug used by Tu Youyou in a rodent anti-malaria experiment on October 4, 1971. It was the neutral ether extract from the traditional Chinese medicine Qinghao. Tu Youyou claimed that sample 191 had 100% inhibition rate against rodent malaria. He said this was a breakthrough point in the anti-malaria efficacy and announced that sample 191 was the key to the discovery of artemisinin in the future. Please listen carefully how Tu Youyou said in a Nobel lecturing speech.
1971年4月10月4号，青号一米中性提取物就是标示的191号样品，以1公斤体重1克体的剂量，连续3天口服给药，取悦药效评价显示抑制率达到100%。同年12月到次年1月猴月实验也得到了抑制率100%的结果。青蒿乙醚中性提取物抗疟药效的突破是发现青蒿素的关键。
Now, let's look at the point. During Tu Youyou's Nobel Prize speech, we want to prove that 100% inhibition rate against rodent malaria was a big lie. First, we use red rectangle to highlight the sample 191. On the left side, we can see 191 Qinghao. On the right side, we can see number 100%, which means 100% rodent malaria inhibition rate. However, in the middle, we can see a number 4/5. What is this number mean? Tu Youyou never said anything about this number. Now, let's look at this complete page of Tu Youyou's sample 191 experiment record, which Tu Youyou attached to her Nobel Prize lecture. First of all, we use red rectangle to highlight the sample 191. Then we highlight the column of 4/5. Then look at the top. We found nothing in the first line, which means we cannot see any description of the data. So we don't know what is this 4/5 about. Now let's listen to the Beijing television how they said about this 4/5 number.
我手中所拿的就是屠呦呦当年成功提取青蒿叶子的实验记录的复印件，而这份记录的原件仍然由屠呦呦自己珍藏着。来看一下这份试验记录，一系列的数字191这个地方用红笔特意标注了，写着青蒿，后面是乙醚的分子式，下面写着1:4，也就是用了1份的青蒿，4份的乙醚。再往后看，有4/5的字样，证明有5只参与试验的老鼠，其中有4只是存活了。再往后看，100%，什么意思呢？这次试验证明青蒿素对于疟原虫的抑制力是100%。
The above television program was broadcasted on March 8, 2016 by Beijing City official television station Beijing Voice. All broadcasting material was approved by Chinese Ministry of Health. In the video above, the commentator said that the number 4/5 means among 5 mouse in the experiment, 4 of them were survived. However, that was a big lie. This big lie was used by Tu Youyou to cheat the Nobel Prize Committee and Chinese people. We use the contradiction method. Suppose that 4/5 was the survival rate, because the sample 192 was marked the same as sample 191. Therefore, it is possible to compare data from samples 191 and 192. Now we can put all the data description on the first line. First, we have sample index 191 and 192. We have drug name Qinghao, both Qinghao. Also, we have the extraction method. Both are 1 part of Qinghao and 4 parts of ether. Then we have total mouse dosage 0.8 gram and 0.6 gram. Then we have survival rate 4/5 and 2/5. At last, we have inhibition rate against rodent malaria 100% and 85%. Because the sample 192 total dosage was decreased by 25% comparing to sample 191. The inhibition rate against rodent malaria was down to 85% from 100%. That was understandable. However, when the dosage was down, the toxicity will be down too. So the survival rate should be going up. How could it be that a survival rate was down to 2/5? Therefore, the number 4/5 was not the survival rate absolutely. In order to figure out what was exactly the number 4/5, let's listen to the following Tu Youyou speech.
1972年3月8日，全国沃山办公室在南京召开抗疟药专业会议。我代表中药所在会上报告了青蒿素191号的提取物对鼠疟由猴疟的100%结果，受到会议极大的关注。
In the above video, Tu Youyou said that she already reported in the conference on March 8, 1972 at Nanjing that the sample 191 had 100% inhibition rate against rodent malaria and monkey malaria. She even emphasized that her results had got the attention from other conference participants. However, according to the conference records and memories of other participants, Tu Youyou had never talked anything about the sample number 191 on the meeting. Also, The sample 191 was not mentioned in Tu Youyou's book Qinghao and Qinghao Type Drugs, published in 2009. Tu Youyou once claimed this book contained all of her important research works. This book was also the major supporting document for Tu Youyou's Nobel Prize application. The first time of Tu Youyou publicly to show this experiment record of sample 191 only on 2015 in the Nobel Prize lecture. There were more than 10 teams participated in the conference on March 8, 1972 at Nanjing. The total conference time was scheduled as 3 hours, so each team only had about 15 minutes to report its research works briefly. Therefore, every team prepared the handout notes for other teams and the host of the conference. Tu Youyou also pre-printed 2 booklets for the meeting. One was titled Using Mao Zedong's Thoughts to Guide the Discovery of Anti-Malaria Chinese Herbal Medicine, and the another was titled Preliminary Screen Results of 120 Chinese Herbal Medicine Model of Rodent Malaria. Those are 2 booklets looks like. If Tu Youyou really talk about sample 191 in the conference, certainly we can find out the sample 191 from at least one of those 2 booklets, because Tu Youyou distributed those 2 handout notes to the conference attenders. This is the sample 191 experiment record paper. Tu Youyou said she already talked about this sample 191 on the meeting on March 8, 1972. However, no conference attenders had ever seen this record paper. They only remember that Tu Youyou gave them 2 handout notes and talked exactly follow the notes. This is the first note, whose name is Use Mao Zedong's Thought to Search Anti-Malaria Herbal Medicine. We looking for these notes from beginning to the end. We have never found out the sample 191. We only found out in the end of this handout the editor name was Chinese Traditional Academy Anti-Malaria Research Team. This is the second handout, whose name is Preliminary Screen of 120 Herbal Medicine. In the end of these notes, we also found out the same editor name and the same editing time. We carefully read these notes from beginning to the end. We also cannot find the sample 191. Now we change the search strategy to search the same medicine in the handout and in Tu Youyou's sample 191 record paper. Fortunately, on the first page of the handout, we happen to find a special Chinese medicine, Huang Yao Zi, which is exactly the same as sample 187. The handout has data description such as death rate and inhibition rate. Therefore, it is possible to compare the testing data for Huang Yao Zi from those two papers to find out what's the true meaning of number 4/5. This is the first page of Tu Youyou's second handout in the conference on March 8, 1972. On the bottom, we highlight the Chinese medicine Huang Yaozi with a red rectangle. On the top, we can see the data descriptions, also highlighted with a red rectangle. This is Tu Youyou's Sample 191 experiment record paper. We marked Sample 187 Huang Yaozi as well as the Sample 191. Now we can put the data of two Huang Yaozi together. We can see that all data are same. They have the same drug name, Huang Yaozi, same extraction method, alcohol plus water, the same dosage, 0.4 gram, the same inhibition rate, 22%. At last, they have the same number 2/5 left, which was clearly marked as death rate. Therefore, for sample 191, the number 4/5 is also the death rate. Now we have questions. When the death rate is 4/5, how to calculate the inhibition rate? Does it correct? Inhibition rate still is 100%. Now we have a common calculation formula. 100% equals inhibition rate plus drug inefficiency plus death rate. This is because when we have a group of mouse in the anti-malaria testing, a part of the mouse were dead. That will be counted as death rate. For a live mouse, if plasmodium in the blood was suppressed, those part of mouse will be counted as inhibition rate. However, if the plasmodium in the blood was not suppressed, but they are still alive, then that last part of mouse will be counted as drug inefficiency. Therefore, the inhibition rate of Tu Youyou's sample 191 must be 100% minus death rate and equals 100% minus 4/5. Therefore, it should be 20%. Tu Youyou said the inhibition rate of sample 191 was 100%. That was absolutely not correct, because Tu Youyou counted the 80% death rate as a part of the inhibition rate. Actually, this was a big academic lie. This is Tu Youyou's sample 191 looks like. Its black color means toxic, killed 80% of mouse in the experiment. However, the Nobel Prize Committee believed that Tu Youyou's false statement that sample 191 has 100% inhibition rate against rodent malaria was true. Look at the following Nobel Prize Committee paper published in 2015. In this paper, the committee said that Tu Youyou achieved consistent results, killing 100% of the malaria parasites in infected mouse and monkeys. Moreover, the Lasker Foundation also believed that Tu Youyou's false statement was true. Look at the following Lasker Foundation paper Artemisinin Therapy for Malaria, published in 2011. In this paper, the Lasker Foundation editor said, at a March 1972 meeting of the Project 523 group's key participants, Tu Youyou reported that the neutral plant extract number 191 obliterated Plasmodium in the blood of mouse and monkeys. Because that Tu Youyou's sample 191 had a 100% inhibition rate against the rodent malaria, was a critical issue for her to win the Nobel Prize and the Lasker Award. We appeal the Nobel Prize Committee and the Lasker Foundation to conduct a complete investigation on whether the death rate of sample 191 was 4/5 or not. Moreover, Tu Youyou had never released the monkey malaria experimental record publicly so far. She once paid the local peasants to catch the wild monkeys in Yunnan province for the malaria experiments. The complete investigation should include Tu Youyou's monkey experiment record. If Tu Youyou could not present any monkey malaria test record, then it should not have any credit for that. The investigation is very simple. Just ask Tu Youyou to submit the complete experimental record of sample 191 with the data descriptions. If the death rate of sample 191 was confirmed as 4/5 after the investigation, then its inhibition rate was definitely 20%. Therefore, her Nobel Prize and the Lasker Award should be revoked. How could Tu Youyou successfully steal the 2011 Lasker Foundation Award and the 2015 Nobel Prize in Medicine? First of all, there was a huge loophole in the application process, which makes it possible for a dishonest person to steal Lasker Award and Nobel Prize by using fabricated documents. Lasker Foundation has the following policy. All nominations, support letters, and nominating materials are kept strictly confidential for 50 years. However, this policy has a big loophole. If candidates were selected by non-democratic government and all key documents were classified, then this 50 years confidential time window would help dishonest persons to steal award with fabricated nominating materials without worried being found quickly. That was the same true for the Nobel Prize. By using this loophole, Tu Youyou has made the world's biggest academic cheating in human history. The second factor was the language barrier to read Chinese documents for judges and men refer. Dr. Louis Miller was the principal referee for Tu Youyou for Lasker Award and Nobel Prize. However, all key documents were in Chinese and he was unable to read them at all. Moreover, no judges of Lasker Award and Nobel Prize could read Chinese documents either. The third factor was that Chinese Ministry of Health government interfered the application process. Dr. Miller would rely on the translation from his associate and co-referee Dr. Su Xinzhuan to know the discovery of artemisinin. However, Dr. Su acted like a Chinese spy and deliberately mistranslated the key documents to fool Miller. Eventually, all judges of Lasker Award and Nobel Prize had been fooled because they trusted everything said by Miller. Although the nominating materials were confidential, however, by reading the following two papers joined by Dr. Miller and Su, we could find out how they introduced Tu Youyou's works to the Lasker Foundation and the Nobel Prize Committee. The first paper is Atomicity Discovery from Chinese Herbal Garden, published in 2011 in Cell magazine. The second paper is The Discovery of Atomicity and the Nobel Prize, published in 2015 in Science China. By analyzing the contents of those two papers, we can conclude that two papers were actually edited by Dr. Su only, and Dr. Miller just signed his name on papers without checking the key facts true or false. Let's see some examples. The first example was about the sample 191. In both papers, it was written that Tu Youyou's sample 191 had 100% inhibition rate against rodent malaria. Because Dr. Miller cannot read sample 191 experimental record, which was in Chinese, therefore all those words must be written by Su Xingzhuan. Now we have to ask Dr. Miller some serious questions. Question 1. Before signing your name, did you notice the number 4/5 related to sample 191 on the experimental record? Question 2. How Su explained this 4/5 number to you? Did he say that this 4/5 was the survival rate, just like the Beijing television commentator said? Question 3. If this number 4/5 was confirmed as a death rate, do you still think that 195 sample had 100% inhibition rate? Question 4. If you found Tu Youyou sample 191 only had 20% inhibition rate against rodent malaria after the recalculation, are you going to make an apology to the world people because you have Tu and Su to cheat them? The second cheating example was about the experimental temperature. On those two papers, it was also written that Tu Youyou used the lower temperature for ether extraction. It was obviously those words was written by Su Xingzhuan too, because Dr. Miller could not read Chinese at all. Therefore, we have to ask Dr. Miller more serious questions. Question 1. Did you know that Tu Youyou using ethanol extraction was at the room temperature? Question 2. Did you know that Tu Youyou switched from ethanol to ether extraction was still at the room temperature? Question 3. Did you know that the lab room temperature in Beijing was about from 10 degrees Celsius in winter to 25 degrees Celsius in summer? Question 4. Did you know that the lab lower temperature usually is the controlled temperature between negative 20 degrees Celsius to the positive 5 degrees Celsius? Therefore, that Tu Youyou used the lower temperature to do the ether extraction was a lie. In her report on March 8, 1972, Tu Youyou did not say anything about the lower temperature extraction. So, this lie was created by Su Xingzhuan, and you will be the co-liar, although you did not realize this was a lie. The third cheating story is about why switch to ether extraction. On those two papers, it was said that Tu Youyou switched extraction from ethanol to ether because of by reading a medical book written by Ge Hong, who was a traditional Chinese doctor 1,700 years ago. However, this was a fabricated story, because in her report on March 8, 1972, Tu Youyou said to the audience differently. Certainly, Dr. Miller did not know Ge Hong at all. So, this fabricated story was created by Su Xingzhuang and Tu Youyou. Dr. Miller signed his name in the journal paper without checking the reality. On her report on March 8, 1972, Tu Youyou explained why to switch to the ether extraction as the following Chinese sentence said. In English, she said, considering that the anti-malaria ingredients may be present in the lipophilic part, therefore we switched to ether for extraction. However, using ether for lipophilic substance extraction was listed in the textbooks, which was not a new idea. So the switch had nothing to do with Ge Hong, because in 1,700 years ago, Ge Hong had no lipophilic knowledge. Let's put the three lies together. First is sample 191 has 100% inhibition rate. Then, go up is lower temperature extraction and the ether extraction. Eventually, they both come from the Ge Hong's medical booklet. Actually, the China Ministry of Health want to create this image, which said the Nobel Prize in medicine come from the traditional Chinese medicine. However, this image is based on the fabricated story that sample 191 has 100% inhibition rate against rodent malaria. More Tu Youyou's cheating material will come later. Bye bye.